Thomas Hardy's final novel, Jude the Obscure, was published in 1895 and faced immediate backlash for its controversial themes, with critics condemning it as immoral and indecent. The novel became the subject of book burnings due to its critique of marriage, religion, education, and class. It tells the tragic story of Jude Fawley, a working-class man whose dreams of education and love are constantly thwarted by societal constraints, personal failures, and internal turmoil. Set in Victorian England, Jude the Obscure follows Jude, who longs to study at the prestigious university in Christminster. He is inspired by his former teacher, Richard Phillotson, who leaves for Christminster at the novel's start. Jude lives with his great-aunt, Jude Fawley, who has reluctantly cared for him since the death of his parents. He works in her bakery while devoting all his free time to studying and preparing for his eventual move to Christminster, even taking on an apprenticeship as a stonemason to support his goals. Jude's dreams are derailed when he becomes involved with Arabella Dawn, who deceives him into marrying her by claiming to be pregnant. Despite their incompatibility, Jude attempts to make the marriage work, but Arabella leaves him to join her family in Australia. Undeterred, Jude resumes his academic ambitions and sets his sights on Christminster, partly motivated by his desire to meet his cousin, Sue Bridehead, who lives there. Jude falls deeply in love with Sue, but his feelings are complicated by his previous marriage to Arabella, causing him to feel intense guilt. When Sue accepts a teaching position under Phillotson, Jude is disheartened to see their professional relationship evolve into a romantic one. As Jude is rejected by the university due to his humble background, Sue becomes engaged to Phillotson. Jude relocates to Melchester to attend theological college, while Sue pursues her own education at a nearby teacher training school. After a night out with Jude, Sue is expelled, leading him to finally reveal his marital status. Despite her love for him, Sue marries Phillotson and asks Jude to give her away at the wedding. Jude's despair deepens, leading him to turn to alcohol and briefly reunite with Arabella, who has remarried in Australia. Their encounter leads Sue to regret her marriage, prompting Jude to vow to continue seeing her. After Drusilla's death, Sue joins Jude at her funeral in Marygreen. Sue confides in Jude about the unhappiness in her marriage, particularly her struggles with physical intimacy. In a moment of emotional vulnerability, they share a kiss, leading Jude to abandon his aspirations of becoming a clergyman and burn his theology books. Sue confronts Phillotson about her discomfort with physical intimacy and asks if she can live with Jude, but he refuses, suggesting instead that they live separately within their shared home. After an accidental physical encounter between Phillotson and Sue, she jumps out of the window in distress. Moved by her reaction, Phillotson finally agrees to let her reunite with Jude, although Sue still refuses to engage in physical intimacy with him. Phillotson faces consequences for his treatment of Sue, losing his job as a teacher, and they eventually divorce. Jude and Sue spend a year in Aldbrickham, continuing to avoid physical intimacy while their divorces are finalized. Arabella reappears, asking for help and revealing that she had a child by Jude while in Australia. After briefly remarrying, she leaves again, this time to wed her second husband, Cartlet. Despite their emotional turmoil, Jude and Sue are unable to marry, and Arabella sends their child, Little Father Time, to live with them. Although they struggle with job instability due to their unmarried status, Jude and Sue persist in their relationship, traveling and searching for work together. Over time, they have 2 children, and Sue becomes pregnant with a third. As Jude's health deteriorates, he becomes determined to return to Christminster. However, the family struggles with finding a place to live and employment. Tragedy strikes when Little Father Time, overwhelmed by the family's hardships, takes his own life and the lives of his siblings. Devastated by their loss, Sue returns to Phillotson, leaving Jude heartbroken and alone. Arabella convinces him to marry her again, and he falls seriously ill, seeking comfort in a final meeting with Sue. Though they still share deep affection, Sue chooses to stay with Phillotson, believing it to be an act of penance. A year later, Jude dies in solitude, while Arabella, indifferent to his suffering, enjoys holiday festivities. She quickly sets her sights on marrying again. At Jude's funeral, only Arabella and Mrs. Edlin, a widow who had cared for Drusilla, are present. Arabella vows that Sue will never find peace or forgiveness. I hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you did, and be sure to subscribe. Thank you.